In this video, I'm going to be covering one of my favorite health and wellness tools that I use personally and recommend to friends, family, and pretty much all my clients and patients who are interested in optimizing their health, and that is the Oura Ring Generation 3. So a little background, I got my first Oura Ring, the second generation Oura Ring, in 2018. That was a gift from one of my mentors after speaking at an event, and I thought it was one of the best tools ever. I've been wearing an Oura Ring ever since then, pretty much every single day, without fail. So I got the first generation 2 ring, and once the battery wore out in that 2 years later, it would function just fine, but just like any device, the battery was not great and I had to charge all the time, so I decided to get a generation 2. And then less than a year later, Oura launched the generation 3, which is what I'm wearing now. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Aaron Choi, and I believe in healthy living first so that you can live your healthiest life and do more of the things that you love and enjoy. So it's an amazing time in health and wellness. So even in just the last few years, health is becoming more democratized, meaning you have tools that maybe only doctors like me used to have access to, and now you can buy them in the form of an Oura Ring, which you can wear on your hand, and it gives you this dashboard to provide real-time data so that you can make better decisions about your health. And I think that is amazing because, well, while I think lab testing and imaging has its place, I know that a lot of health is created outside the doctor's office or outside the medical system when you're living your day-to-day life. And these tools can help you make better decisions. And that's why I'm a big believer in the Oura Ring. So a couple things just up front. The conclusion is, I'm a believer in the Oura Ring, and I highly recommend it if you're on the fence or just thinking about it. And number two, I have not been paid to make this review. I am not an affiliate of Oura Ring. They don't even have an affiliate program. And I have no personal gain whether or not you decide the Oura Ring is for you. And I really want this to be informational and educational so that you can make the best decision if this is going to be something you invest in. So number one, I want to talk about what is the perspective behind using something like a health tracker like the Oura Ring. Now, I have used Fitbits. Having been a marathon runner and trainer, I wore a GPS watch and found that data is very helpful in making decisions and understand what's going on underneath the hood. So just like a car has a dashboard, you have your speedometer, you have your tachometer, which tells you how hard the engine's working, you have your oil temperature, your gas gauge. If you're driving an electric car, you have your gas meter, your electricity status, how much charge is in your battery. If you drive something like a Tesla, this is like your dashboard for your body. And the whole reason why we use data is, one, to make the unapparent more apparent, because our own sense of what's going on inside our body is sometimes not that accurate. And if you're like me, sometimes it's very inaccurate. And this provides hard data so that you can understand, what is true, what is false, and you can hone in your intuition about what you're feeling and what's actually showing up. And the main objective of collecting data is to make better decisions and to do more of what makes you feel good, and then to do less and to avoid things that make you feel bad. It's as simple as that. So my approach to running labs is that I only want to run labs or collect data if it's going to help me make a different decision. Am I going to do something different? Am I going to recommend something different? Is it going to help me understand what the root cause of the issue is? And that's the only time I would want to use data. But now, when in the past ordering labs would be too restrictive, whether that's for cost or convenience, now you have continuous data in the form of the Oura ring. And exactly what does it measure? So in just a second, I'm going to switch over to my phone and give you a tour of the Oura ring app and show you exactly some of the things that you will see when you are looking at your Oura ring dashboard. So let's hop right over to the app. So here in the Oura ring app, I'm showing you my home screen of what you're going to see when you open the app. So this is my data from yesterday. And you're going to see that Oura gives you an overall readiness score. And this looks at multiple factors. It takes your sleep, your activity, different markers like your heart rate, your body temperature, and does a bunch of calculations and gives you an overall readiness score. So this is going to tell you whether or not you should pay more attention to your rest recovery, your sleep, or maybe your tank is full and you can really go hard at whatever you want to do that day. It's going to give you data about your sleep. So my sleep last night was not very good, definitely insufficient for what I aim for, but I'm not perfect, and the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be able to know and recognize that that is suboptimal for my goals and I can do something different today. It also shows you activity based on your readiness score. You're going to have an idea of, if you are someone who likes to move your body, to exercise, to work out, maybe you play sports, you have an idea of whether or not you can push it that day, or maybe you need to back off and allow a little bit more rest and recovery. So I think that's super valuable. And what's cool with the Oura Ring Generation 3 is now we have real-time heart rate monitoring. So the past generations, at least Generation 2, you could only see your resting heart rate, your average heart rate, while you were sleeping. I think there were limitations to battery life, or it takes a lot more battery to monitor heart rate, to have the sensors running all day and all night. And now with Generation 3, they found a way where you can monitor heart rate in essentially real time. What's also cool is you can track, and Oura Ring will automatically track and sense certain activities. So if I go for a walk like I did yesterday, it will sense that my heart rate went up, I was moving. It will even track, I think in combination with your phone, the route you took if you were carrying your phone. In this case, I wasn't. But if you were carrying your phone and GPS is registering where you are, then it will also track the route, which up to you. It's up to you if you like that or not. And then on the next tab, the readiness tab, this gives the overall readiness score and some of the factors that contribute to your readiness score. Most importantly, looking at resting heart rate. How hard or fast is your heart beating? And also looking at another, maybe lesser known, but even more important marker, heart rate variability. That is the time in milliseconds between each heartbeat. So I don't have time to jump into the science of it, but the heart rate variability is a marker for how stressed or how healthy and what state is your nervous system in. So the nervous system includes your brain and your spinal cord and the nerves, and there's a coordination. There's coordination between your nervous system and your heart, and that influences, and stress influences your heart rate variability and your heart rate. We're also looking at body temperature, respiration rate, how many breaths do you take per minute while you're sleeping. And then it gives you a breakdown of all the data that contributes. So then now I can see that, all right, looking at my recovery, I think I definitely need to focus a bit more sleep in the next few days, maybe be more conscientious of how hard I'm pushing myself or how much I'm working. And I can make some changes based on this data. And then you can see graphs over time when it comes to heart rate and average heart rate. So there's a lot of data here, including sleep quality, Definitely not sleeping enough the last couple nights, just because there's been a lot of work and I'm about to travel. So things happen, no judgment. It's more of how can I steer myself in the right direction having this data. So I think that's a very important part of using a tracker. It's not to feel bad about yourself, but it's really how do you change what you do so that you can feel better moving forward. And there's also an activity tab where it's showing that, okay, I got plenty of steps. Maybe in terms of consistency, I could be more consistent with my activity this past week. And so that tells me that, okay, I got to move more frequently. And you can kind of see that based on your age, your weight, your recovery status, your readiness score, is going to give a recommendation for how many activity calories that you want to burn in a day. And it also gives you total estimated calorie burn, and that can also give you information about maybe how much you should eat or how much effort you are putting into your activity. And now there's some also cool features around with meditation, built-in meditation. You can track real-time heart rate variability while doing some breathing exercises, biofeedback. We call this biofeedback. There's sleep aids that you might listen to. So a lot of cool features. And another thing that you might use the Oura Ring for is actually to track and add tags. So you can add a workout. Let's say it didn't register with the Oura Ring. Maybe you did a workout class and you weren't wearing your Oura Ring. You could add a workout and say, I did an hour of high intensity interval training, or I went for a walk or an hour swim, and you can add that here. You can also add tags. So these are things that happen in a day that might affect your readiness, including, maybe you went for an acupuncture treatment, or we know that flying through time zones can really affect your readiness and your heart rate variability. So you can keep a record of things that you're experiencing and make a connection between your life and how your body's responding. So that's an overview. You can put the ring in airplane mode if you're concerned about potentially electromagnetic field, EMF exposure, and you just put it back on the charger, and that you'll reconnect your ring that way. That's a common question I see. And there's a lot more data that I won't get into, but you can explore it. And any of these markers, if you click through, you can see data and explanations about what it is and what it means. And when it comes to Oura, the data gets more valuable over time. So what I've noticed, having worn an Oura Ring for 4 years, is I can see patterns through the years. What seasons, maybe I do a special dietary experiment. Maybe I'm doing my own program, the metabolic reset, and I can see my heart rate variability double. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I should do more of that. So I notice now that certain things I eat influence my readiness, influence my heart rate variability. And so you can start to make a lot of connections and connect the dots and see patterns in your own life. And that's super valuable. So that's an overview of the app. Now let's get back to what are some of the limitations and how might you use it. Okay, now we're back. And just to wrap things up, the Oura Ring is a very powerful tool. It's one of my favorite tools. And let's talk about some of the limitations. So I think overall, I'm just splitting hairs and nitpicking at this point. But some of the times that I found the Oura Ring not to be maybe super accurate is if I'm doing I used to, when I guess the gyms were open more and more easily accessible, and I was going to these high intensity interval classes, if I was standing in place doing something like knee touches for like really high intensity, really just kind of jumping up and down, but I wasn't actually moving in space, but I was just doing a lot of things in place, it might have trouble tracking some of that activity. So that's one potential drawback if you do a lot of things in place. Another limitation that I've seen is if you do a lot of things with your hands, let's say you work a lot with your hands, if you are in construction, if you are you do a lot of weightlifting, barbells, you can use the Oura ring, but sometimes it gets in the way and I don't want to damage it. So if I'm lifting something like doing deadlifts or something with a barbell, or kettlebells, I might have to remove the ring just to avoid damaging it. So in those cases, if I'm doing something one-handed, I switch to the other hand and leave it there temporarily. So I picked a ring size that works on a couple different fingers, so I have that flexibility. Maybe it's neurotic, or maybe I'm just a really good planner. But that is a potential thing to keep in mind if you use your hands a lot. So there's other options like the Whoop band, which I haven't used, but I've heard is solid. You might consider something like that. If you don't plan on wearing the Oura ring regularly, that could be a drawback. And the power is in consistency of wearing it. So, if you're going to wear it, wear it. If you're not going to wear it regularly, then the data is going to be incomplete and not that useful. And finally, what are some of the ways that you can use this? So maybe I'll make a longer video on this, but where the rubber meets the road is I will use the Oura ring to track the quality of my sleep. So I'll give you an example of an experiment that I've been doing. I've been experimenting with something like blue light blocking glasses. How does light, the quality of light, affect my sleep? So some of the things I noticed is if I go outside first thing in the morning and a couple times throughout the middle of the day and optimally look at the sunset, just exposing myself to daylight when it's supposed to be bright, and then exposing myself to less light in the evening. We know that's important for circadian rhythm and sleep health, and I've noticed that my sleep improves when I do those things. Another pattern is how late do I eat the night before and how does that affect my sleep? So I want to make sure I realize that, let's say I eat too late on a Saturday, going out with friends or family or going over to my in-laws and they make a huge meal for us. I notice if I overeat, that affects my sleep. Another interesting pattern I've noticed when it comes to sleep and quality of sleep is that sometimes if I take vitamin D, for example, before I sleep, I experience deeper sleep. Another pattern that I see is if I sleep late, let's say I sleep at 2 a.m., but I sleep 8 hours, my sleep is not as good. Being kind of a night owl historically, a pattern I thought I was a night owl, but actually I feel better when I sleep at 10 or 11 and then wake up at 6 or 7, get that full 8 hours at the right time. So these are just some of the things that you might consider experimenting with and seeing how it actually affects you instead of just telling yourself a story like, oh, I'm a morning person, I'm a night person, I've always been this way. Well, there are things that I used to do that I thought were just how I was, but the Oura ring told me that I functioned doing better doing something else. So ultimately, the conclusion is if you're going to if you are interested in optimizing your lifestyle, how you eat, how you sleep, how you work out, how you recover, how you breathe, then the Oura ring is a powerful tool to help you make better decisions and ultimately feel better, perform better, be more focused, and live an overall healthier life. So if you have any questions about the Oura ring, if you have a different experience, I would love to hear it. Leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next video.